Ethan Gray stepped off the plane with the polished ease of a man who had spent years traveling first class. His tailored suit, freshly pressed even after a 10-hour flight, clung to his athletic frame. The watch on his wrist, worth more than most people's yearly salary, glinted under the soft airport lighting. The last time he had been in this terminal was almost 6 years ago, when he'd left the city with nothing but a duffel bag and a fierce determination to prove himself. He had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. He was now a multimillionaire. A tech mogul whose name circulated in glossy magazines and financial columns. He wasn't expecting to see her. The crowd buzzed around him, families reuniting. Business. Travelers tapping away on laptops, children tugging on parents' hands. Then, like a scene unfolding in slow motion, his eyes caught a familiar figure near the arrival gate. Lila. She was standing with her back partially turned, her soft brown hair cascading over her shoulder, the same hair he used to run his fingers through late at night. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, but to Ethan she looked luminous, just as she had the day he'd first met her in a tiny coffee shop. In her arms, she cradled a baby a toddler, maybe a year and a half old. He froze. 1,000 questions ran through his mind. Why was she here? Whose child was that? And why did something deep in his chest twist with a pang he couldn't name? He should have walked away. They hadn't spoken in years. Not since their relationship had crumbled under the weight of his ambition and her pleas for him to slow down. To choose love over relentless work. He hadn't listened. Back then, he'd told himself she didn't understand. Now, with success surrounding him, he wasn't sure if he had understood anything at all. She turned into the world narrowed to her eyes, meeting his. Ethan, she said, her voice a mixture of shock and hesitation. Lila. He stepped closer, his tone steady but his heart racing. The baby in her arms shifted, and Ethan caught sight of a pair of wide hazel eyes. His breath caught. They were so strikingly familiar, it was like staring into a mirror from another lifetime. "This is your child?" he asked, his voice breaking slightly despite his best efforts to sound casual. Lila's gaze dropped to the child, and she adjusted the blanket around him. "Her name is Sophie." Ethan's mind spun. The math hit him before she even spoke again. Sophie couldn't be more than 2. He and Lila had broken up just over 2 years ago. His pulse thudded in his ears. "She's mine, isn't she?" His voice was low, but the words seemed to hang in the air between them like an unspoken truth finally given form. Lila looked at him, her expression torn between defiance and vulnerability. "Yes," she said finally, "she's yours." Ethan's knees felt weak. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her jaw tightened. "Because you left, Ethan. You made it clear that your company came first. You were gone before I even knew I was pregnant. And when I tried to call you, when I thought maybe I should tell you you were in another country, giving interviews about your big dreams, you had no room for anything else. It's not me, not this." She glanced down at Sophie, whose tiny fingers were now tangled in her mother's hair. The airport noise faded into a distant hum. Ethan's carefully built world of investments, board meetings, and business deals suddenly seemed meaningless in the face of this little girl staring up at him. "With his own eyes, I would have come back," he said, almost pleading. "I would have been there. Would you?" Lila's voice was soft but sharp. "You couldn't even stay in one place for more than a week. You missed birthdays, anniversaries, every promise you ever made. Do you know what it's like to wonder if you'll raise a child alone because the person you love can't slow down long enough to see what's right in front of him?" Ethan swallowed hard. The truth was, she was right. Back then, he'd believed success would fix everything, that if he could just make enough money, life would fall into place. But now, standing here, he realized how much he had lost along the way. Sophie yawned, her small face scrunching up. Without thinking, Ethan reached out, and Lila hesitated for a second before letting him take her. The warmth of the child in his arms sent a shock wave through him, her tiny heartbeat. The scent of baby lotion, the way her head nestled against his shoulder as if she had known him forever. "I didn't know," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I didn't know what I was giving up." Leela's eyes softened, but there was still a guardedness there. "What are you doing back here, Ethan?" "I closed a big deal in Singapore," he said, almost embarrassed by how hollow it sounded. "I was coming home for the first time in years. I thought maybe I'd see you." Lila studied him, searching for the man she had once loved in the millionaire standing before her. "And what now? You've met her, you know the truth. What happens next?" Ethan didn't have an answer. The logical part of him, the businessman, wanted to plan, to calculate, to strategize. But looking at Sophie, he knew this wasn't something that could be approached like a merger. This was his daughter. "I want to be in her life," he said finally. "Whatever it takes. I don't care about the past. Well, I do, but not in the way that would stop me. I want to know her. I want her to know me." Lila's lips trembled slightly, and for a moment Ethan thought she might cry. Instead, she nodded. "Then start by walking with us. We're meeting my sister for coffee before heading home." He fell into step beside her, carrying Sophie carefully. They walked through the terminal, past the overpriced souvenir shops and bustling cafes. People glanced at them, some probably recognizing him from magazines, but for once, he didn't care about being noticed. They sat at a corner table in a quiet coffee shop. Lila ordered tea, Ethan ordered black coffee, and Sophie gnawed happily on a teething toy. Lila told him about the past 2 years, the sleepless nights, the first steps, the way Sophie loved music and would dance to anything from nursery rhymes to jazz. Ethan listened, truly listened, for the first time in years. At one point, Sophie reached for his hand, her tiny fingers curling around his. The feeling was unlike anything he'd experienced, the kind of grounding, unshakable connection money could never buy. When they finished, Lila stood. "We should go. Okay, Sophie needs a nap." Ethan walked them to the parking lot. The crisp air smelled faintly of rain, and he felt a strange ache, knowing they were about to part ways again. "Lila," he said, his voice low, "I know I can't undo the past, but I want to try to be here, not just today, but always, if you'll let me." She studied him for a long moment. "It's not about me anymore, Ethan. It's about her. If you're serious, then prove it. Show up consistently. No disappearing, no excuses." "I will," he promised, as she buckled Sophie into the car seat. The little girl waved a tiny hand at him. Something inside him shifted, an unspoken vow that he would never let her down. The car pulled away, and Ethan stood there, the cool wind tugging at his coat. He realized that for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about his next meeting, his stock portfolio, or the next big acquisition. He was thinking about a future filled with tea parties, bedtime stories, and the sound of his daughter's laughter. And for Ethan Gray, that was worth more than any fortune he had ever built.